All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Russia puts its strategic nuke forces on the highest alert to weaken Western support for UKR. At least that's what they're telling us. They're saying that they're putting their nuke forces on, again, the highest alert to scare us. At least according to this, they are. It says that Russia put its strategic nuke forces on highest alert. Again, we are 4 days away from the anniversary of the invasion and all of the general SVR chatter that's going on. And, of course, our entire community thinking we're very, very close to World War III. But again, we're all crazy, right? It said that Russia is attempting to use its nuclear threat to weaken international support for UKR, according to Kyiv intelligence. It said the official UKR Ministry of Defense reported via Telegram that Russia has started large-scale exercises involving its strategic nuclear forces stationed for launch in air, land, and sea, and put its units on the highest alert. The post shared on Sunday warned that Russia was planning to use blunt nuclear blackmail to weaken the foreign support and stop JB's visit to Europe this week, which many of you know. He actually visited Kiev today and did it and only told everybody afterwards, or at least they said he did. Apparently, even Russia supposedly guaranteed his safety and all of this. Why did he physically need to go? What was needed to be said behind closed doors in person without possible leaks? What is actually happening here? So we're going to talk about this and much, much more on tonight's show. There is a lot to go over, so stick around. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. What is going on, guys? It's Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. If you've never been here before, this is a live show. We are a small community that talks about current events, and you can find every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we're going to talk about here today over on marfooglenews.com. Again, this website has all of the sources for everything that you need to know as far as anything that we use from mainstream. We make sure to, of course, have a bibliography available for you. When you go and to marfooglenews.com, you'll see it's very easy to navigate. Just go for today's thumbnail, Blackout, the Coming Separation. And, of course, that is referencing right now. We're going to share some stuff with you in a little bit that is going to at least further solidify what I have said, which we are going to be separating from China very, very soon. That is also, we are going to go back to Made in America, as the Prez said, and I don't think it's going to be a pretty thing. And I also don't think it's going to be a very good thing for a lot of us. So we'll talk about that here in a second. I mean, it's good in general. It sounds good, but I don't think the reason why we're going to be doing it is going to be very good at all. If this is the first show you've ever been to, this is a great place to go back through previous shows. Of course, you can go back through this past week. I'd highly recommend at least going through the past week of shows. Listen to them while you're at work or as a podcast, whatever you would like. Every one of them has some pretty crazy stuff in it. So when you go here at the very bottom of the page, there's also a very important spot, which is the yellow bar. That yellow bar is the overflow. That's all the stuff that cannot fit into a 2-hour time period. Now, this show might be a little bit less than that, but it's not because of a lack of news. In fact, we have so much, we're going to try to quickly get through a lot of these. I did a video over on Marfoogle News earlier. I highly recommend you go see that short shareable video. I'm not going to try to repeat a lot of the points from that, but there are some really serious things going on. And personally, I am in the camp of I really think we are absolutely close to something absolutely horrendous, and I don't think that any missiles need to fly for that to happen. I've shared my view on a ton of what is happening with not only our surroundings, but the potential for a huge change in the next few years, given that most of you probably have a career that might be replaced. And very soon, I believe they're going to be controlling a lot of what is said as well. So make sure to get over to that website and know where you can find us, marfooglenews.com. Let's bring in my co/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So, and by the way, there is so much. So let's get into it. 6.4 magnitude earthquake hits southern Turkey. I want to point out, many of you might remember, but I was sharing some of the things I found when I went through a VPN and went out of our country just the other day. I did a video on this before this third earthquake. I said that all around the world, all of these different news sources are saying, hey, they were talking as if there was going to be another earthquake, not like, oh, we may have a tremor or may have an aftershock. They were basically saying that this is going to happen. And of course, everybody's been talking about how Istanbul, all these articles about Istanbul, they need to check their building codes and all of this. They even evacuated some of the buildings they thought were bad yesterday before this earthquake hit, or it was at least a day before. So it's like, how do they, they could guess if there was going to be an aftershock, but it sounded like they knew. And I even took screenshots last week, and it was like they were talking about it as if it was done. Here in the United States, none of the mainstream media said that. So it's like, what do people know? How do they know that there's going to absolutely be an earthquake, or at least talk about it like there is? They warned specifically Istanbul was at risk, right? Well, then there was one that hit. This isn't geographically right there in Istanbul. There's actually a line of earthquakes, but what they're saying is in this line is on that plate, and that the whole plate is at risk right now. I mean, if there is a risk for earthquakes, how are they knowing this stuff? Again, other than what we already know and the science that we already have, right? It says a 6.4 magnitude earthquake has struck southern Turkey weeks after a deadly quake devastated the region. Of course, that being the big 7.8, which is massive. That is absolutely massive. To put it in perspective, Seattle in 2001 had the Nisqually earthquake. That was like a 6.3. I think it was a 6.7. They downgraded it to a 6.3. That 6.3, they said if it was a 7.0, if it was just a 7.0, 0.8 less than this, that the entire waterfront would have fell into the water of Seattle, the downtown area. They said it would have been horrendous. This was a 7.8. Now, each point is exponentially bigger than the last. So a 7.8 nearly being an 8.0 is a horrendous earthquake. A 6.4 is a horrendous earthquake as well. Now, only 3 perished from this one. The first one, 44,000 people. That's I other than say like the tsunami Boxing Day, which I think that toll was at like 250,000 people. 250,000 people perished in that event, something like that. Japan only had 15,000 people perish, and they had a 9+.0 earthquake and a tsunami that you all saw. The world watched in 2011 when that happened. So this was horrendous. But again, this is like very crazy timing. It works out for a lot of people that were getting on their case. It now seems that Turkey has kind of changed its tune on a lot of its, holdbacks on NATO things. Oddly enough, Just found that interesting. But the 6.4 happened, and yeah, it's crazy how many other countries were talking about this in their mainstream media, saying that, there's going to be another earthquake and soon, and they should even evacuate, literally get people out of buildings now, and it was already over, and even one of the main aftershocks happened. So I thought that was interesting. And then large white balloons seen by pilots over Honolulu, Hawaii. Now, we briefly talked about this prior, but Dex, I'm going to have you pop in, and I told you guys some of my recent dream. It was really freaky. I had thousands of balloons covering the whole sky. And again, I have covered a lot of balloons this last couple of weeks, so maybe that's why my brain did it. But it turned into a nightmare really quick. Started out like, a bunch of balloons, like if you could imagine balloons in the shape of like a Starlink launching, and the rest of the sky was empty, and then all of a sudden everything just started floating over, and then everywhere you saw was balloons, and it wasn't like happy, birthday balloons. It was these white balloons, and they were all different shapes and sizes, and one of them stopped like a drone and just went right at me, and I hit it away. It was only about that big, and then I woke up. But it made me think, if they do launch thousands and thousands of balloons, and they're also flying around in them in jets, it would probably affect their jets, I would assume, but would that affect our targeting systems if we were to launch, say, nukes or a defense system against nukes? Just a question I had for you guys who probably know a whole lot more than me. Dex, about these possible things by Hawaii, they've had lasers, they've had ships off their coast. Now they're supposedly seeing reports of these surveillance balloons.
Well, I'd question, and I guess we won't know until anything official comes out, but I'd certainly question what the size of these are, if they're, weather balloon size, or if they're like the one we saw that was brought down over the Carolinas, which was really massive because it carried a huge payload. I'd be more concerned about the ones with the large payload, because those are the ones that could carry something like an EMP or sophisticated, listening on spying devices. Certainly, having something over Hawaii is always cause for concern. But we don't know exactly what this is.
And it says that reports were flooding in that a large white balloon has been seen by pilots over Honolulu and Hawaii. It comes just days after the U.S. officials claimed that previously downed Chinese spy balloon that was targeting the state of Hawaii was blown off of course. Now reports are flooding in on social media claiming that pilots have seen what is being described as a large white balloon approximately 40,000 feet over Honolulu. Like this tweet. Is this China, or is this the U.S. Air Force about to accidentally shoot down another weather balloon? Another tweet asked. It says that these reports have not yet been confirmed by air traffic control or other U.S. officials. The object was said to have been seen by several pilots. An image circulating online shows what appears to be a pilot in the cockpit holding a note. This note reads, "Report of large white balloon in vicinity of blah, 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 these coordinates west, estimated to be between FL 400 and FL 500, precise altitude unknown. Advise ATC if object is seen. Currently is not known who the object belongs to or the threat level it poses to the public. Multiple balloons have been shot down by U.S. military this month." There's been a lot of chatter around Hawaii, and I would love, again, if any of you from Hawaii want to contact me, Adam at marfooglenews.com or Dex at marfooglenews.com or at Marfoogle on Twitter. What do you guys see happening above the islands? Because there is a lot of online chatter saying that Hawaii and Guam are being heavily surveilled by not only Russian ships, but now possible Chinese forces. So I would just wonder how much of that is true, how much of that is rumor or speculation. But I would keep your head on a swivel for anybody over there. I'm sure Hawaii has definitely had, Hawaiians in general, them having to go through that false missile alert. I'm sure the island, of course, is probably well aware of all of this stuff going on. Probably keeps track of it since then. I'm sure a lot of people got a wake-up call that day. And then an EMP or solar incident could result in blackout warfare. So I want to point out that this is actually from U.S. Naval Institute. And again, this is something that I think that people really should be paying attention to. Russia and China have the ability to destroy the U.S. power grid and degrade military capabilities with a non-kinetic first strike. Not only through and by the way, this is a U.S. Marine writing this, not only through the electromagnetic effects of nuclear and non-nuclear weapons, but also by means such as cyber attacks. The sun could similarly destroy all or parts of the system through a natural event. An electromagnetic pulse, an EMP, is the electromagnetic radiation from a nuclear explosion caused by Compton recoil electrons and photoelectrons from photons scattered in the materials of a nuclear device or a surrounding medium. It can also be caused by a non-nuclear weapon. Through their effects are usually more geographically limited. The resulting electric and magnetic fields may couple with electrical or electronic systems to produce damaging current and voltage surges. Depending on the burst type, it can cause power spikes ranging from several hundred volts per meter up to 1 million volts per meter. That would be the kind of thing that would have caught the telegraph wires when we had the Carrington level event, caught the headsets on fire. This was back before we had computers and all of that. It says it can cause component and subsystem burnout or degradation of and system upset. The CME, it essentially explains that. It also could be one of the culprits. It says a high-altitude nuclear weapon detonated about 25 miles above North America would destroy most U.S. electronics, high-voltage transformers, vehicles, including tactical ones, and other electrical machinery. A CME, depending on the severity, would produce a similar effect, currently 99%. And this was I think this was a really kind of eye-opening stat here. Currently, 99% of all military bases rely on the civilian electric grid. That, to me, just sounds absolutely insane. I guess, what else are they supposed to do? But again, 99% of all military bases rely on civilian electric grid. It says, while many analysts consider a nuclear-generated EMP unlikely, it is not the only threat. Recent overflights of the balloons from China have been at altitudes high enough to cause a nuclear EMP. The late Dr. Peter Vincent Pry was the executive director of the Task Force on National and Homeland Security, a congressional advisory board dedicated to protecting the United States from EMP, cyber attack, and terror attack of mass destruction, and other threats to critical civilian infrastructure. It says, according to the task force, U.S. plans to harden the electrical infrastructure against a high-altitude electromagnetic pulse, or HEMP, non-nuclear electromagnetic pulse, weapon, or CME, are virtually non-existent. Again, that basically there's been very little done. In 2008, the report of the Commission to Assess the Threat of the United States from Electromagnetic Pulse Attack reported on the effects of an EMP, and the report concluded that 1 year after a large-scale EMP or CME, 9 of every 10 Americans would perish. This is from a variety of causes stemming from the attack. Sadly, present-day hardening efforts remain non-existent. It says in August 2021, Pry's task force released Blackout Warfare, Attacking the U.S. Electric Power Grid, a Revolution in Military Affairs, and yet still no action to harden the grid has taken place. Now, mind you, the last president signed an EMP. He signed an actual executive order. What happened is it didn't get undone. It's still there. But when President B came into office, there were certain moves made to essentially not enforce or to get the thing moving. So this is really, really a huge vulnerability. And for some reason, it's like they're trying to keep that vulnerability there. It says Chinese and Russian military doctrines outline the use of hemp weapons. Both states possess the capability to produce not only hemp attacks, but also NNEMP attacks in conjunction with cyber attacks. As Blackout Warfare notes, Washington does not understand the threat from EMP-CME, focusing almost entirely on cybersecurity, largely ignoring the other major threat vectors against electric grids, sabotage, and EMP. The Congressional EMP Commission states combined armed cyber warfare, as described in the military doctrines of Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, may use combinations of cyber, sabotage, and ultimately nuclear EMP attack to impair the United States quickly and decisively by blacking out large portions of its electrical grid and other critical infrastructures. Although an executive order coordinating national resilience and electromagnetic pulses exists and is intended to make national EMP preparedness a priority, very little progress has been made. This is what's crazy to me, is that even though this has been looked at, they said, yep, absolutely, there is bipartisan support. Someone is holding this back. It's almost like it's almost like somebody is like, oh, yeah, it's important, but just don't fix it yet. It's very strange to me. And this also goes in, and this is a really great article to talk about, but this comes into play later. We just got brand new news that they are about to drop almost $2 billion to build semiconductor chip with protection here, and that's because of some of the things that are being said. Dex, I know that they reported on several radio stations, but there are some things we'll cover here in a second, but we'll go back to that. But they're saying that we are going to, all of a sudden, there's this like huge push to make the semiconductor chips here. And this goes back to my theory that they are accepting that Taiwan is going to be taken, and they're preparing for the next couple years of when we will not be having things manufactured in China. They even specifically say that right now, our chips and everything in our cell phones and everything that we have is now vulnerable to some sort of event from China. We're talking about a Dragon Day type of event, and they're admitting that it is actually a problem and it actually can be done. So this should be another wake-up call if you're new here, if you're somebody that has a family member that does not know the seriousness of this. Quote some of this stuff and actually put the paperwork in front of them so they know that this is being talked about. Mainstream media, for some reason, wants to talk about everything else, but they don't want to talk about how this is more of a threat now than it has ever been, especially with the U.S. purposely helping with all of this conflict. And now that country, it's stuff you can't base your opinion on because we're not being shown it. There's whole swaths of internet media that is not coming through to the United States because of the conflict, but it's also showing proof that they are preparing for war. So people should be waking up by now. I feel like it's even less of an argument. There's still people denying that it will ever happen and, it's just a distraction. At this point, it's like, everything can't be a distraction. And say if you take 100 events and you say 98 of them are distractions, there's still 2 left. There's no way statistically all of these are distractions. One of them is going to be real, and no matter what out of the 100 ways you go down this road, even if 2 of them are real and are going to happen, then we are not in a good position. Let's see here. Android Architect, hey, thank you for being here. We've got I'm Awake, Are You? What is happening? Triple RB, S29. Recalcitrant, nice to see you again. Francis B. Well, at this point, I think the Foogle fam needs to come together. This is a really tight community, so it's you guys that make this amazing, and it's frankly, there's a lot of active and retired military members in this group that have been you guys have been changing my opinion on some stuff. And the timeline, I felt like I frankly felt like we had more time before some. I felt like we had more time, and I don't exactly think that anymore. So, Dex, do you want to talk about some of the stuff? And I guess we in a second here can we show that video that we got of that huge
No,
announcement?
that's a news broadcast. We can't show that.
Okay. Well, by tomorrow we'll show you some of that. And
it's on the website though.
Okay. So you should go to our website and watch it, because they're making a huge announcement of they are physically going to be doing the semiconductor thing, and it's going to be coming a lot faster than a lot of people think. They're doing it for a reason. And then U.S. and Seoul hold drills, and we'll touch on this again, and I can probably try to read some of what is being announced. In fact, Dex, there's an article about that, and it came out from a radio station today that kind of, I think it goes over it. I found it earlier, but I didn't send it to you. I'm sorry. U.S. and Seoul hold drills as Korea tensions rise. The United States held joint air exercises bilaterally with South Korea and Japan involving strategic bombers on Sunday. Now, what's even trippy is Japan is joining on this one, which, again, they've always done the self-defense force stuff, but it's from what we know and from what military members have said, Japan is going to be jumping on a whole lot more of these exercises. And Japan was always historically, or at least since WW2, they have been a self-defense force. It's even in their name, they're self-defense force. Only if they were attacked would they really go outside the realm. Now they have changed their constitution. They're changing it right now so they can be a force to be reckoned with. They're preparing for war. It's very clear. They have actually changed the structure of their country. Fundamentally, they are changing so they can be involved in an offensive war. That should be a huge, just huge flashing light at people to realize what is about to happen. Australia speeding up their contracts from 16 years to get nuclear subs to 2 years and totally saying F you to France. I mean, like, that was another sign. It's like they need it now, not 16 years from now. There's a lot of different things. We've covered many of them. If you watch the show every day, then you already know. If you want to bring up a couple for anybody that's new here in chat, let us know what again, some of the reasons why you believe this is about to happen. Some of the reasons why you're telling your family that stuff is going down. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said that the exercise demonstrated the Allies' overwhelming defense capabilities and readiness posture. The South's military said in a statement that the exercise, quote, affirmed the United States' ironclad commitment to the defense of the Korean Peninsula. In a separate exercise, Japan flew F-15s over the Sea of Japan with U.S. bombers, Japan Defense Ministry said in a statement, calling the security environment, quote, increasingly severe. Mind you, China is getting involved, and as predicted, they're saying that they're essentially hinting towards helping and supporting Russia, which there was the very first kind of pieces saying, oh, well, it looks like they need some help. If they end up starting to fund with lethal items to Russia, then we have a proxy between the U.S. and China. Only the proxy is with China supporting Russia versus us, and Russia's nobody to mess with either. This turns into more of a world war than it was even last week. And then North Korea's state media, KCNA, said the country conducted a, quote, sudden launching drill on Saturday, February 18th, which was shown on state television. It says it followed Pyongyang's threat on Friday of a, quote, unprecedentedly persistent, strong response as South Korea and the United States geared up for their annual military exercise, which, again, Japan ended up joining in on. Dex, do you want to touch on this? This is also... we'll touch on this, and then Japan calls for emergency UN meeting over the North Korean launch.
Certainly. So it was a busy weekend. So they started off with their unprecedentedly persistent, strong response, as they said they were going to have. We reported that on Friday. Then in turn, they launched some test missiles, and then we did the exercise, and then they launched again more missiles. So I don't know that it's necessarily unprecedentedly, but it was certainly a lot of back and forth this weekend over there with NK specifically, but also with SK in Japan and the U.S. military.
And Mace just made a really good point that in 2 hours and 22 minutes that Vlad is going to do a speech. Here's the thing I wouldn't put past is, like, one of these days we're going to see a speech that declares war on the United States or vice versa. That's going to be, I think we're going to see history made in a very short amount of time. We're going to be seeing this history, and we're going to be living through textbook war. war being declared or some event happening, remember this when this happens. When you turn on your TV and every single channel is covering the same thing, I hope you're going to remember this. And here's the thing, I don't want this to be right. When we go to conflict, like if we end up in a full-on World War III, I don't think myself and my peers are going to be able to speak. That's what I think. I think that they've already war gamed out what would happen to anybody talking about what's going on. And as you know, there's a lot of Ganda that happens when there's conflict. There's obviously Ganda from US and Vlad's side and UKR. And UKR and Vlad, they went to the same Ganda school, literally. They learned all of the tricks of the trade of putting out, misinfo from the same sources, even the same agencies. But when it goes to World War III, we're going to be dealing a world of Ganda. And I believe that anybody even asking questions is not going to be around. So at that point, I don't want that to happen. Obviously, I don't want to disappear. I don't want for all of, nobody to be able to tune in. But that's what I believe will happen. And I believe there's a coming information conflict that's going to happen, and it's going to be bad. So make sure not only us, but other creators that you really like and you listen to every day, make sure to find out if they've got a website or if they've got some external way to watch them. And then, Dex, do you want to talk about the Japan calling for this emergency UN meeting?
After the last launch, or after this weekend's kerfuffle between everybody over there, they're now calling for an emergency UN meeting over these launches. I don't know that, the UN has been pretty quiet when it comes to NK. I don't know that they're really going to get much here, but, and also keep in mind, you've got the biggest allies having veto power when it comes to some of this stuff. But it'll be interesting to see if anything comes of it, what happens with Russia's vote and Xi's vote, etc., in support of NK or abstaining completely. So we'll see what'll happen. But obviously they're not happy with the actions that are happening there, they being Japan. And I wouldn't be too, since he tends to like to fly these ICBMs over their country quite often.
So whatever happens, you've got an emergency UN meeting there with Japan, and you also have the emergency UN meeting with Russia talking about the pipeline. So you've got a bunch of very important meetings happening with the United Nations, and of course, whatever folks believe about a future that involves UN on multiple soils, it's kind of creepy. Before we move on, highly recommend, make sure to go over and check out EMP Shield. This is why we've been telling you for years. This is why we've been showing you all of the progression that this has had. This is why, again, we have pointed you this way. We hope that people end up looking into this, because this is a device that can protect you against an EMP. EMP Shield, the announcement that was made today, is huge. There's going to be at least $1.9 billion that they are going to basically try to allocate towards not only doing EMP Shield, but to producing, how would you say it, Dex? They're going to be helping. Go ahead.
They're investing $1.9 billion in a microchip factory if they get the CHIPS Act approved. So the governor of Kansas came out today and announced the support for this. You can pull the article out of Up Next. I found the one you were talking about. But basically, this is their next endeavor into military equipment, such as planes, satellite, and other things, and hardening them. As we talked quite a bit, we've said over the years that they've been working with DoD, DHS, et cetera, to improve their readiness at their level inside their equipment, and obviously taking it to the next level with some of this more advanced equipment is where they're headed. It'd be nice if the rest of the grids would get on board. That's been a slow process, obviously, mostly done in Texas, where they've been part of that consortium there to harden the Texas grid. But that moves slow. For some reason, the grids just move slow. But the DoD likes to spend money, as we all know, and they have made this big announcement. And if this happens, they're going to be obviously adding a ton of jobs to the state of Kansas, which is why the governor's on board. And they'll be building these chips that are needed for this equipment protection that they're building and advanced defense type equipment. So not necessarily something we consumers are going to consume, but if anything, it shows specifically at least an area in which our DoD is obviously thinking to go beyond just what they've done with their power sources in buildings and infrastructure to moving into equipment, etc.
And some of the quotes at the press conference that was held are very creepy. The woman, as they're announcing this, they have Tim Carty come out. They basically talk about how, sorry about that, hold on. They have Tim Carty come out and talk, and this one of the women at the press conference talks about how we are now dependent on these chips from China, that almost everything around you has a vulnerability. In this press conference, this is why this is being pushed through. They are now absolutely pointing and saying China has all of these things with a back door in it, and they're now extremely worried about it. They're about to put this in. If you go back in time to when President B did this whole speech and had the Intel guy stand up and everybody ended up, cheering him on, is they said, we're going back to Made in America. This wasn't a campaign promise. This was after he was in. This was something telling and telegraphing what's about to happen. And I bet you he's going to be on the positive end on it. Something is going to happen. A lot of things are going to change. But they're saying they're going to be separating from China. And now there's a lot of confirmation that this is about to happen and that they're probably going to let them have Taiwan. Maybe that's the downside of this. Go ahead, Dex.
Well, and that specifically is the act.
The CHIPS Act, right?
Yeah. Am I Roboto?
Yes. Hold on. Let me switch you over. Okay, now go.
The act was signed in August 9th of 2022, and that brings about $280 billion in new funding to boost domestic research and manufacturing of semiconductors. So that's where EMP Shield specifically, and the governor of Kansas was going after this $1.9 billion to get that investment to build these chips that are specific to the hardening of advanced equipment, not just standard electronics that they already do today, but more the advanced stuff like satellites and aircrafts and other things like that. So that's where this potentially this funding will come, but that's exactly the initiative that you're talking about. And it's, this is one example, EMP Shield, but it's also happening across the rest of the semiconductor business. As much as we can bring chip production back inside the U.S., the better protected we are from either the vulnerabilities of the chips that are coming in from China or the dependency that we have from chips that probably aren't vulnerable as much in Taiwan, but they're vulnerable in the sense that if there's a conflict there, they're all going to be cut off.
So again, this is why we've recommended. If you don't, you can find them on your own. If you are a watcher that is, you're not a fan, but you do end up watching us for one reason or the other, you can go around us if you want. But I'd highly recommend looking at one of these for your car, because you can actually put these in your vehicle and keep them running. You can put these on your solar generator. In fact, if you have a Flex 1500, that's the only solar generator that you can get an EMP Shield for. You can also protect your gas generators and your home. For the home version, you have to have an electrician put it in. But once you do, you will protect everything within 250 linear feet from where it is wired in. That means all of your devices, as long as they're plugged in, they will be protected. It grounds a signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your device. This is what they're doing for all of these agencies like DoD and DHS. They're not. The thing is that nobody is going to pay for the civilian sector to be protected. And as we just showed you, they are telling us updated information saying that we are absolutely vulnerable. We are absolutely behind. And that's why the CHIPS Act and all of this other stuff is being pushed, because there are some good people here that are realizing that we are absolutely at risk right now. So I don't know why it's not being fixed, but we'll see what happens. Again, we can protect ourselves. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. If you do want to go through us, you'll end up getting a discount of $50 off per device, and you'll end up supporting our independent news at the same time. We don't have a multi-channel network. We don't have any backup. You guys are our backup. And affiliates like this get you a discount, and you help us continue through all of this. We are held back from a whole lot. So thank you guys for helping us. But at the same time, we're happy to, I believe it will save lives at one point. If either of those events, and we know that a CME will happen, it will end up helping a whole lot of people either get home or bug out or be able to have their stuff still running. And then Congress delegation visits Taiwan in tense U.S.-China moment. It says a delegation of U.S. lawmakers met with the head of Taiwan's legislature on Monday as part of a 5-day visit to the self-ruled island that comes as U.S.-China relations remain tense after weeks of trading accusations over a spy balloon. It says the delegation that arrived Sunday includes Representative Ro Khanna of California, Tony Gonzalez of Texas, Jake Akinulaklas of Massachusetts, and Jonathan Jackson of Illinois. They are expected to meet President Tsai Ing-wen as well as business people on Monday. They held talks with Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company's founder, Morris Chang. So at the same time as all of this is going on, and as we are getting press conferences coming out today of essentially EMP Shield helping with the semiconductor factories here, it's very clear they're worried about even keeping Taiwan. Why are all of these meetings going on with Taiwan? What is actually happening behind closed doors? Are they switching over? Is part of the TSMC they already have some offices here in the United States. Are they going to start moving stuff over? What is actually happening here? And you could bet that if any of that gets out, maybe that's why they're doing it in person instead of on Zoom or Skype, is that will speed up the whole timeline on China taking that. Again, they say that even if China takes over right now the semiconductor, manufacturing plant, didn't they say, Dex, that they could wipe all the information and basically screw China over? I don't necessarily believe that would matter, though, if they have all of the equipment to manufacture it there and are able to go in and take it. Or is it just that they control it?
It's more about a control issue. So a chip like, let's just say the chips that are in an iPhone, they're special chips that are made by Apple. Those are designed in America. Everything about it is protected in America. Then they send over only the information needed to mass produce it, and then TSMC mass produces it. So they don't actually have the information on how to make that chip. They just have the information on how to produce that chip, if that makes sense. I know it's a little convoluted to think about. So ultimately, it's not like all of a sudden they're going to be able to reverse engineer or take that technology and do anything with it. They just will be able to say, we're not going to make them anymore, and you won't have them. And so that's, a lot of the chip design, we as in the US still dominate the chip design side. We still dominate the production. That's why we put the curbs in place to prevent the exportation of our chip technology to China, because they didn't want their AI to get more advanced. They didn't want other things to get more advanced, because we still dominate that. We may not dominate the mass production of it, but we dominate the design and the development, the R&D side of it. So we would, the loss of TSMC would set the world back, 2 to 5 years probably, as the time it would take to build up that production side of being able to mass produce at that level. We definitely have the blueprints and everything we have on our side to design it, develop it, make them bigger, better, faster, etc. But it's being able to produce them by the millions. That's where they come into play.
You have to understand that the world now is completely and utterly dependent on this technology. Everything around us now has these chips in it. The average car has 160 of these chips in it. Anything from transportation to the electronics that are connecting all of the items around us, everything as far as our infrastructure goes, these chips are in everything. And if you control these chips, you would control. It's almost like how if you controlled the petrol, if you controlled the oil, you would control the world. Well, in the future, if they're pushing this whole new thing with electric and lithium and all of this, if you control the lithium and if you control the technology for, by the way, these chips, you can't. I don't think you can have solar anything without these chips. So if this is now the future, if they have to switch to it, or if they're doing it because of a new agenda, or I don't. Yeah, again, there's a lot of debates going on about this. But if we're going to electric everything and electric cars within years, and they're telling us right now that by 2030 that your gas car is not going to be, you're going to have separate streets to drive on. Things will be closed to you if you're driving a gas car, or you won't even be able to use it. They're banning the manufacturing of it by 2025, and in some states, I think mine is doing some stupid thing by 2025. If you control these chips, you're going to control the world. If you control it, just like as if you control. So now there's going to be wars over lithium. There's going to be wars over this. This is why, again, lithium is in high demand and low supply right now. So the whole world is fighting over resources. Just the resources are changing. This is war worthy. If you don't believe any of the crazy theories, and if other than that, I mean, in general, I think a lot of people are right. Almost all of these different paths, they go, oh no, it's going to be like this. I think both could be true, or all five could be true, as far as all of the carbon stuff and everything else. Everything's going to come all at once. And I think people are really underestimating how much things are going to change. So keep that in mind. All right, so thank you, by the way. Thank you, Ed Brown. I appreciate your support. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Craig Alicious. Let's see here. Craig Alicious, without that factory, EMP recovery would be impossible. That's an excellent point, Craig Alicious. If they hit us with an EMP and we don't have a way to replace it, and if they control it, they would also control us. Sorry, guys. That's a scary thought, Craig Alicious. Heath Spear, and I cannot have you forget Black Start. Look up Black Start and then click on news in any of the search engines. You'll find Black Start was accessed during Solar Winds. That Solar Winds hack that accessed all of the branches, including Space Force of military, they also accessed our infrastructure. They accessed our Black Start program, which is essentially the plan. If everything goes down, our grid goes dark, we would immediately go to the Black Start plan. That's our exact plan of how we would get everything up and running. And even under that plan, they said 12 to 18 months to get everything running again. And that would assume there's no kinks in that process. But if they know the Black Start plan that was years in the making, then they absolutely know what we're going to do and which steps we're going to take, and they could go to each one of those steps and set up a roadblock so we don't get it back up and running. It's like a Red Dawn scenario, only instead of Russia with the other ones. It's a Dragon Day scenario. And Heath Spears says, thanks so much for being number one on the great ones. Marf, A.K. Adam, hard to live in all of the evil around us without this family here. Well, I'm glad you find solace in there's a lot of great people here. Again, thank your mods for keeping it peaceful down there. Thank you guys for all the continued prayer for Lisa's daughter. Just to give you an update, again, she still needs your prayers. Lisa Hall's daughter was not even remembering the last few weeks. She was taken off of her ventilator, but she is definitely in need of prayers. So please, Lisa's still working full-time and dealing with that. So please, prayers for Lisa and prayers for her daughter to recover. And then Overcoming Bipolar with Jesus. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Ed Brown, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your support. And then Craig Alicious, thank you for being the last one out, last show, X 2.2 flare, which we kind of updated, but there's been a lot of solar activity. We're heading into 2025, which beyond all of the crazy theories about what's going to happen in 2025, all of the deadlines that are lining up for it, all of the solar maximum that's going to happen in solar cycle 25, we also have all of the stuff going on with Russia, UKR, with China, Taiwan, with Japan, and of course India, Pakistan, and every other hot point, including Iran and Israel, North Korea, and South Korea. We're heading into a world conflict. Everybody's picking their sides. Everybody's joining. Everybody is drilling. We're in the lead up to it. And I think it's about time people realize what it looks like. So thank you so much for that support. Thank you, everybody over on DLive, by the way. Thank you as well, Jacktronics, Beer Juice, and Scooby-Doo Right. Amanda Rachel, thank you, thank you, thank you. Truth is treason in the empire of lies. Love to all. Amanda Rachel, you are absolutely right. And there's going to be a lot of people pointing treason at everybody here soon. Yobi, Cognitable, Kimbria, Beer Juice, and everyone else that's over on DLive, including our wonderful mods, Chance, Paladin, Jammer, and April. If you're there, thank you so much for being there. The Philippines. Dex, do you want to cover the Philippines? U.S. discuss joint Coast Guard patrols in the South China Sea.
This is certainly not going to make Xi happy at all. As we, continue on, we had the meeting in Philippines where they expanded the use of the bases. They expanded our investment in military there and presence there. We then followed on the heels of that with the largest wartime exercises to go on underway there with the Philippines. And now they're suggesting that they're going to take the Coast Guard and the Philippines Coast Guard and use that in conjunction with the U.S. To do patrols through the South China Sea. And as you recall, when we spoke about this last time, the reason why the Philippines is so critical with the South China Sea, when you're looking at a map, where the location of the South China Sea is, you got Taiwan at the north, but you have the Philippines is sitting literally right there at the center to the right or east of the South China Sea. So it's pretty critical to their location. It's pretty critical to have that area open and free for transportation, as opposed to what China wants to do, which is control and close it down and be able to manage and maintain control of shipping through that area, as opposed to it being open and free passage.
And if you need a reason why things could heat up very, very soon, into our next article, China supports Russia's draft resolution on the Nord Stream blasts. Basically supporting the questions about the Hirsch, the piece that was put out about how he says he got information of exactly how it was done. And this could have been the Fantastic Freddy to line up. They actually say, you did this, you basically committed an act towards us, this was it. There's a speech coming, by the way. So I don't know about the Vlad speech in a couple hours. I don't think this, I sure hope that wouldn't be it. Because I think it would be after. What if they do find out that, the U.S. had absolutely done it, which most people believe they did. But even if they do find out about that, what do you think that's going to change? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Let me know in the chat. What do you think would happen here if they do investigate or something leaks out, something happens, and they absolutely are able to prove that this article or this piece was right? Yeah, I think it's a good question to ask. And then the document may be put up to the vote this week. Russia has requested a UN Security Council meeting on the situation with the pipelines for February 22nd. So that is in 2 days from now. Of course, the diplomat said, we heard the call from members of the Security Council to have an investigation over the explosion. We see that request is legitimate. The Chinese diplomat added, it says we are supported to have SC discussions and also take appropriate actions to make sure that we have a clear picture on what happened and then to get to those who have done that accountable. Says that on the 17th, Vlad submitted a draft UN Security Council resolution to investigate the T attack on the gas system. It proposes that the UN Secretary General create an independent international commission of lawyers to investigate the sabotage. So what do you guess in the whatever the next month is leading up to March? Well, what do you guess that this might how could this end badly, right? I guess we should hope that that they're found not guilty, because this is really serious. People do not realize how serious it was and how sus it was that they didn't just turn the thing off. Dex, do you have comments on this?
It's definitely a potential starter for the conflict, I think. And I think that if they get confirmation that it was done by the U.S., then they'll be in a position where they either have to respond or they're just going to look like they got no power.
Do you think that they could declare war over it, or do you think they would have to? What are they going to do? Sanction us?
No, they would. I would think they would. What they would do is like kind. They would take out something.
Well, who knows if they didn't already? We don't know what. Who knows though? The three-letter agencies of all of these countries, they often do stuff to themselves. But that one didn't make sense, and most people agreed on that. JB made a surprise visit to UKR as air raid sirens blared. What a just insane thing. So Dex, do you want to go over what happened here and like how this played out?
So they basically snuck him in. They on Saturday night, it was on his calendar that he was having dinner with his wife. Then on Sunday, he was going to be in Washington through Monday, then leaving Monday to go to Poland. That was because he was doing a European visit, and some had speculated he might meet with Zelensky near the border of Poland, but nobody really knew if that was going to happen. But apparently, after his dinner, they snuck him out in the middle of the night and under the cover of darkness, flew him to Poland, and he jumped on a train and then took a train into Kiev. I don't know why on earth they would put him on a train. Maybe they thought that was safer, but it just seems a little sketchy to me. But that's how they did it. They brought him in. He then appeared in the morning, walked around in the streets with sirens going off. And then later they told us after the fact that they actually did talk to Russia and gave them the heads up and that he was coming. So I guess if they wanted to do something, they could have, but they were given assurances that they weren't.
I guess what most people are asking right now is why? Why in the world was this necessary? Why even take a risk unless something massive is about to happen? Why is our president there? Did he just visit our own troops and give them a pep talk or something? Just saying, hypothetically, a lot of people theorize that we are putting all of this gear there because our troops are about to go in. Sounds crazy, or does it? Why was the president there? It doesn't make sense. Why risk our president, regardless of who it is? Why risk a president going to a war front line in a city that they say they're about to take? Why? Even if you have guarantees from them, and first of all, what are you? Why? Why is that necessary? And why would the enemy go, yeah, sure, you can visit. Yeah, go ahead. You're the guy we've been telling our whole country that we want to get rid of the whole regime. Why would they do that? None of this makes any sense. I'm going to go to the chat. I would love to. Why do you think this would happen? And by the way, there is that speech. I'm wondering what's going to be said. I'm curious to what is this going to be a historic, like very dark and red speech behind it? And we're going to take our blah, blah, blah back. I mean, like anything could happen at this thing. And I hope people are paying attention to both sides here, because this is history. We are living through history. What do you guys think about this? Why are we even over there? Says Joe Shields from Boston. Jacktronics. Got to make sure 10% for the big guy. Exactly. Thomas Trevino. Seriously, but does anybody have a reason why the president would need to be there in person at all? At all. This does not make any sense. No sense whatsoever. It does not make sense. Let's see here. Jay, time to start an Amish paradise. Me and Weird Al are already on it. Let's see here. Linda Hope, even Elijah and Moses grew up. Dang it went by too fast. Private conversation with Z. Yeah. Yeah, maybe they had a private conversation across the table. You know what I mean? CG Race, Rob Max, maybe he even brought his son. Barron's Saturday. He was on the set of Mandalorian. He wasn't actually there. He should have gone to Ohio. Frickin' great point there. TWMT says he isn't there, but why do they want us to believe he is there? Says TMWT. I think I said that right. We run the show. He is invested in UKR. Makes perfect sense. Come on, man. Well, but that doesn't. It still doesn't make. How do they justify that? I mean, you would have somebody go for him, and it says, is he still going to Poland? Didn't he already go to Poland? If he's not in Poland right now?
Next.
Okay. Yeah. No, I know, but is he? Do we know if he's left?
He was in and out at UKR quickly. I don't think he was hanging out. But he's back in. After that, he was supposed to go visit places in Europe, including Poland.
Yeah, and actually, I think I moved these around a little bit. So, let's see here. Yeah, so they basically said, and then he was also going to Poland. Poland, of course, has the what do you call it? The system, the anti-air system, the Dex. It's at the tip of my tongue.
Patriots.
The Patriot system from Germany. Germany gave Poland that system. Poland, of course, had this event with the two missiles that went in, or the one missile that went in, and two people perished. They were like on a tractor or something. That originally, I theorized that maybe they thought that was a tank, or the missile had AI that something. Why did it hit there out of nowhere? Then they said that whole thing was sus. If you weren't following back then, if you're new. A few months ago, the missile went over into Poland's territory, which, by the way, if that was Vlad, that would have been a World War III scenario. If it was Vlad's, it took Polish citizens and took their lives. That's enough to start a WW3. They at first said, oh, no, and UKR said, no, it absolutely wasn't us. I know what our people said. They said it wasn't us. And then after about a day, it turned around and it said, oh, it was us. Sorry, I made a mistake. And everybody was pissed. In fact, a lot of people unprofile pictured Mr. Z there because they said, he's pushing for World War III, and he's the one. It actually was his. I don't know what to believe on that. But when that happened, we looked at Poland, and then Romania has the 101, the 101st Division digging trenches. I'm sorry, why do they dig trenches? You think they're digging trenches along the border and they're not actually preparing for a massive European war? Is that a just in case kind of thing? I guess you could say that. I mean, like, this is going crazy. Let's see here. And then Poland, we'll talk about Poland again because they actually just warned. They just made a prediction, a very freaky and scary prediction that they're actually making a prediction about Russia's next attack. I might have closed it, Dex. But do you want to, unless it's in here, Zelensky warns new evil axis of China and Russia could spark World War III as Xi backs bloodthirsty Putin. Is this like not a B movie? Like, you can see what's going to happen a year and a half before. And the thing is because it's mainstream media, everybody's like, oh, it's just mainstream media. But people have not believed mainstream media for so long. Now, when they do cover it, everything is a distraction to our community, and I understand that. But 1 out of 10 is not going to be the distraction. And I guarantee you, none of us really know which one's the distraction and which one's really happening, but you can see the big picture. Every country is preparing for war. They're all drilling. They're getting their military sides up, and there is a real war. Even if, and by the way, I just want to remind you, there has been major wars between two sides where the people at the very top supplied and supported both sides. Some of the big families that are still around, the names are still ominous. Those families supplied cannons to this side and that side. They supplied muskets to this side and that side. So please understand, they are not going to be fighting. And they have profit to be had around the globe. So they don't care. And I bet you they don't have to, I don't even know if they care about who wins. Because either way, they will stay in power, they will be safe, and they'll know exactly what is happening. And they don't care about us. Dex, do you want to talk about this new evil access? This could be Ganda, or it could actually be playing out in front of us exactly what we've been saying for years.
There's a lot of speculation, especially coming off of the Xi supporting the draft resolution about the pipeline. So the thought process here is that there's potentially already going on a lot of equipment being shipped in to help out Vlad. If not, then there could be more coming from Xi. And this is, I guess, the point they're trying to make is they're trying to paint a picture that, anything with Vlad is also with Xi and vice versa because of their alliance. And that's the picture they're trying to paint. We've got the big speech tomorrow, actually in 3 hours from now, less than 3 hours from now, from Putin. And then you have our president, JB, who showed up unexpectedly early in UKR. And now he's going to give a speech tomorrow or, sometime today in Warsaw or somewhere in Poland. They haven't even said where that's going to happen. So it's really interesting that you've got both of these things happening at the same time. You've got everybody pointing the fingers now at Xi in addition to Vlad as it relates to this conflict, which is what Zelensky's doing. So it'll be interesting to see what the message is tomorrow, or when we wake up tomorrow, what the message is coming out from Putin, and then when and if and what will be said from our administration. I don't know if he'll try to usurp him or if he'll wait and go after so he can respond. But that's what's in store for the next 5 to 15 hours.
I mean, look at this in a simple way. So they're no limits partners. Vlad is saying he's not giving up. This is only prolonging it. Unless we go to war with Vlad, there's no option where he doesn't win with UKR. Well, are we saying that there is no option that they let them? It's kind of what they're putting out to be. So what happens after they take out the whole UKR military? Because even if, say, Vlad's losing all of his soldiers, Xi is going to step in and help him. That's what he said. He said he'll not only support with gear, with ammunition, but who knows? We could see Chinese soldiers on the ground in UKR if there isn't already. Nobody's talking about that. But, everybody's talking about possible U.S. soldiers there. We've already had somebody who was a prior Navy SEAL perish there, and he went AWOL from being a Navy SEAL, one of the most respected positions in the Navy, and he perished there. And they said, he went AWOL to go fight in another conflict, which makes a whole lot of sense. You would think, if he retired, then maybe he's part of like Blackwater or something like that. But no, he literally left to go fight in a war. So instead of being like a deserter that's like, I don't want to fight, he left and fought in the conflict and perished there. Again, that's another possible little trigger for a WW3 if he was currently on the payroll of the U.S., possibly, special forces, and they sent him there. Not saying that's what happened, but again, a lot of people speculate. And if they are going to back them up until the very end, then what other option is there besides at an eventual point directly butting heads with NATO and this new evil axis. You remember the last time they talked about an evil axis? We got into a 20-year conflict. Only this one is the big one. This is the once every generation kind of conflict. This is the next world war. And people are afraid to admit it. They're afraid to talk about it. I know that a lot of you, and even if you can disagree without being afraid. I'm not trying to say if you don't believe we're getting into WW3, you're afraid. But I do believe there's a general group of people that do not want to think about it, and they're actually forcing themselves to not see some of this stuff. Or maybe they have hope, and if you are the biggest optimist in the world, I don't blame you, and I think that that's great. I unfortunately do not think that way, and I wish I did. Because when this does go down, I think information is the first thing that's going to be clamped down on. We're already being clamped down on as is. So this thing's about to get really crazy. So, all right. And then before the dire nuclear warning for everyone on the planet, I don't think it's going to go nuclear. I think it would be conventional, but we'll talk about that here in a second. I want to remind you guys, if you haven't already, this is actually coming in handy just this morning. We have a windstorm going through and we lost our power for another 2.5 hours. The energy solar generators are some of the best out there. And through affiliates like this, you can support independent media at the same time as not only getting a discount, but you also get something that you will be able to keep for decades and that will be able to come in clutch every time you lose your power, every time you go camping, every time you go anywhere and need to use a power drill or take it in your work truck, whatever it may be, or simply set up a frickin' movie screen out in your yard and play some movies for your kids. This thing is absolutely amazing. If you haven't checked out the energy solar generators, they have the new X2. These can be shipped out almost immediately. Again, these are, again, very, very short wait. These are ready to go. These are the answer to the all built-in one. These just came out about 6 months ago, I believe, and these are the new built-in one. Before this, they had the LT, which is the super small one that's kind of more for cell phones and tablets and charging that. But their main flagship system, there is a long wait for it, and I would highly recommend, if you have the ability to get one of these, to do it. These are modular, so they can be altered in all different ways. Basically, you can make it the solar generator that you want. You can extend it up to 96 batteries. You can even turn it into a UPS uninterrupted power supply with a mod. You can turn it to triple the power, so instead of 4 panels max, you can actually do 12 with a mod. You can mod it to do all sorts of awesome things, and they make this incredibly low watt all sorts of accessories that you can plug into this. A good example is their LED light chains. One of these lights could light up an entire part of your house and it'd be brighter than any lamp in your house. A chain of 3 could light an entire campsite and light up an entire area outside. I mean, like a wedding. Take less than 10 watts. So you could essentially run them for weeks or months. Again, already lights and stuff like that, but they have low wattage stoves and low wattage cooktops, low wattage coffee machine, all sorts of things that you can run and virtually use almost no battery on this. So great things to have. Again, there's all sorts of cool accessories. If you are into the gadgets, this is awesome gadget, but also this will come in clutch when your power goes out for any reason. It doesn't have to be the end of the world. It can be a rolling blackout, a tornado, an earthquake, whatever your area kind of disaster you may have. Almost all of us have lost power at one time or another. Go to marfooglenews.com/energy. Again, the Flex, the badass one, this is worth the wait. You might have to wait a few months, but it is definitely worth every penny. It is definitely one of the coolest systems out there. If you want one right now, all built in one and extendable up to two units, you can dual link these to double the capacity and double the output. You can get 2 X2s and pretty much power anything in your house Again, go over to marfooglenews.com/energy. One is good enough for most people. It's a beautiful unit. It's very, very intuitive, and it's absolutely built like a truck. All of their systems are. They're not plastic. They're metal. And then this one, of course, wood grain, beautiful accents. Make sure to go check it out. It also helps support us as well. All right, and then Dex, they heard my opinion about this. The Kiev mayor issues a dire warning for everyone on our planet.
Strong words coming from a mayor, but probably not out of the realm of reality. When you think about it, if a nuke is used against UKR, just one, it will have an effect on the rest of the world. I don't think it would ever be just one. I think that would change the game, so to speak, whether it's tactical or if they just go all out. Then that's totally, that's game over, so to speak, or at least it will be massively devastating to the entire world. But even just one will have a major effect to the entire world. It will change the way conflict is looked at. We will have some significant decisions that will have to be made as to, do you do like kind or not? Do you respond in kind or not? How does that change the face of the front of conflict when, the next event is happening? Is that all of a sudden open the door up for tacticals to be used, and what effect will that have? And then what are the effects, just think about the environmental effects that go on with stuff like that. So the point is, they all feel like they're on the edge of the potential use of nuclear. I don't think that they're wrong to feel that way. And I think that the rest of the world is pretty much on edge, thinking that something is about to happen with that, and it may be bigger than we expect, or it may be something more strategic, whether it be electromagnetic pulse or whether it be tactical use of nukes. I guess we'll have to see.
I don't think they would just nuke. I think that EMP, if you were looking at it from a like-kind perspective, they have both countries, China and Russia, they have been putting out stuff to their own people that they're protecting and hardening their grids against this kind of stuff. Whereas we, for some reason, something's holding us back, almost like a shadowy figure is like, yeah, you passed that, but let's just wait a little bit longer. But at the same time, that one would not directly take the lives of millions of people. The reason why 9 out of 10 people would perish in a blackout scenario here in the U.S. and probably everywhere else is because infrastructure would immediately break down. And if they EMP us, it's not like, then if we send 50 nukes that way, then they nuke us and then we're done and everything's done. But if they EMP us, and then we try to EMP them and it doesn't work on them, then, we'll literally tear ourselves apart. The EMP scenario, if you look at it, especially with our dependence on Chinese chips and everything else, they could go in 5 different back ways, have us locked down, screw with all of our cyber stuff, and now everything is dependent on our internet and everything else. They could confuse and cyber attack our military into going in circles, and then they could actually come in and possibly take multiple areas without anybody even knowing. Now, the military has protected several of their own things, so we'll have the military going, but who do you think is going to protect us? Do you think the police is going to protect us? I could not believe an older film talked about a fire sale. What movie was that? That was Die Hard or Live Free #4, the fourth Die Hard movie. Which, by the way, probably one of the last good movies that what's-his-face put out. No offense, but that movie's plot was a fire sale, which is a real thing if you look it up. But beyond just selling something very urgently, it's a 3-step process of basically taking out transportation, this, that, and then taking everything out at once in a cyber attack. And in that movie, it's pretty freaky because they play it out and they basically take out the I believe it's the transportation, then it's all of the agencies, then it's the nuclear stuff and power grid. Power grid would be a part of that. They would, and in that movie, the guy said, "Oh yeah," Bruce Willis goes, "Well, they have whole departments and whole agencies dedicated to each thing," and he goes, "Man, it took 4 days to get water to the Superdome." It's true. In Hurricane Katrina, look at how that mess turned out, and that was a natural disaster. People were perishing on the bridge. It was an absolute cluster. They declared martial. And, in fact, able-bodied, one of our wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Foogle fan members here, called in and told us that experience. She was a nurse at the time. She had to have an escort to work to do her job, and she said it was absolute pandemonium. I mean, it was like everything was messed up, corrupt, and everything else. But in that time, all of the police left their stations. There were sheriffs that... they were interviewed, then they were like, "Oh, are you staying at your post?" "No, I'm going to go try to save my mom. She's in a nursing home." They left their post to go save their own families. If you think that even 1,000 times bigger event is going to go any different, then you are tripping. As far as the military might help, but at that point, if we're in martial law and curfews and everything else, you better hope that nobody gets power hungry. You know how police act when they have that much power. Think about if the military has ultimate power and government is possibly scattered, has communications problems. This is like preppers, this is our ultimate scenario that nobody wants to see, but everybody is watching for. And so whether this happens or not, I don't think it would go nuclear. I think it would go EMP. I think it would go some sort of cyber attack. And just to go back to the reminder, at the Davos, 93% of their cyber experts put this out to the public that they believe in the next 2 years, which also lines up with 2025, that there is likely to be a catastrophic cyber event. That's not me saying that. That's 93% of the world's most elite cyber experts and 86% of the business leaders. And the business leaders that were there that are saying this out of their groups, these are the CEOs of every company that you absolutely household name know the name of, that you probably have your phone number and all of your information saved so you can put your phone number at the store to save 5%. They're also the same companies that were accessed during solar winds. All of these branches, everything was accessed. Something is headed our way, and I hope that over years of watching us, you've seen enough to really get it. I know you guys, everybody here is just, I think most people are on the same page. There's a couple pages that everybody else is like, no, I think this page is something else, but almost everybody is really putting two and two together. And then Kiev security chief vows to expel Russian troops from UKR soil and dubs Vlad Hitler's twin. Dex, do you want to cover this?
And again, the bold statements. This one, they're banking on getting all these tanks, and they go so far as to say our tanks will be, quote, our tanks will be parked on Moscow's Red Square, and that will be justice. Kiev security chief vows to expel all of the troops from their soil. So, big statement. These are the words you kind of expect to hear. But making the comparison of Vlad or Putin to the evil one is pretty significant. And this notion of rolling tanks into Moscow, it doesn't, unless they're foreshadowing a greater NATO conflict, I don't see that UKR is ever going to be in a position to actually do that by themselves. Maybe if there was if a great third conflict rolls out and NATO is involved, I could see potentially rolling that far in, but I just can't see UKR by themselves doing it.
No, and as far as not without the help of a whole lot of gear and possibly troops from the U.S. If you think that UKR by itself is stronger than Russia, then I don't know what to say. And I'm not a fan of Russia, but I also don't underestimate one of the three major powers in the world. Nobody underestimated them before this conflict. But now all of the Ganda has us all confused and says that they're losing in mass numbers. Maybe I could see that if we're using U.S. gear and our awesome military supplies are so good that they are taking out mass numbers, but that doesn't mean there's not more people to fill those spots. But who replaces the UKR people? Once they run out, I mean, they've already conscripted. They would have to fill it with some of their own people. What happens when they run out of their people? Vlad has no limits partners like China, so we'll see. And then Poland predicts Russia's next attack. Now, a lot of these European predictions have come true, but it usually takes a couple weeks. It said that Russian President Vladimir Putin must be defeated in his invasion of UKR because he is also looking to invade other countries in the region. This is coming directly from the Polish Prime Minister. So remember early on in this thing where none of these prime ministers and the NATO folks would say that this was going outside of it, but we all kind of theorized that, hey, maybe they're going past UKR? He is stating that it's a matter of fact that Vlad is looking to go past UKR and to take the rest of Europe back. And maybe why Japan's so worried is because China and Russia have worked it out to where maybe them and India is going to take their enemies' land. Maybe they'll give them Tibet back. China will grab Taiwan and Japan and have, their part. Maybe they've all went to dinner and worked out oh, we'll have this part of the world, you have that part of the world, you have this part of the world, and the U.S. will no longer be above us. Because I bet you there's some jealous people underneath Rome. It says in an interview on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference, Mattis Morawiecki told France 24 that Moscow is preparing for the next attack. Now, this very well could be Ganda. But it's surprising because they have never said stuff like this, or at least they have never said it so concretely that he is going to do this. And this is the Polish Prime Minister. And it says, is preparing for the next attack. As well as fighting for their independence, he said that UKR will also be fighting for our freedom and our security, and that Russia has summoned the worst demons of the 20th century: imperialism, colonialism, and nationalism. Morawiecki said that he believed, with the help of UKR's allies, that Russia could be defeated, possibly this year. What happens if Russia's defeated as a nuclear power? Do you think they just go back in their hole? I don't know, but they did talk about planning to evacuate their leadership, but I don't think that they would just go without a fight, which was essential because other countries, including Poland, a NATO member, could be next. Sounds a whole lot like they're preparing for a world war, but I don't know. He described how provocations such as Russian jets buzzing the borders of NATO members signaled Putin's future intentions. It's up to the UKRs to define what victory means. He said, but I would not wish that the Russian is half winning this war because they are preparing for the next round. They're preparing for the next attack, the next offensive, potentially on the Baltic states or Finland or Poland or Romania or Moldova, which a lot of people guess Moldova is first out of any of those. Any other country bordering, including countries in Central Asia. Moldovan President Maya Sandu said that the Kremlin had plotted a coup in her country where Russian troops are stationed in the breakaway Republic of Transnistria. This is now, therefore, such a critical moment for what we do, everything possible for this Russia is to be completely defeated, because this could only create a better starting point for a new era of development. Says when asked if this implied a regime change in Moscow, Morawiecki replied, that's always possible, but I see, unfortunately, that public opinion in Russia is by and large supporting Vlad. This is what I'm talking about. In Russia, they are calling for World War III. They're calling for USA to be taken down a notch. It is all over their media, and it's all over their actual, the people speaking, the people's blogs. they are looking at us with the same critical eye that some of the theorists look at it, and they're seeing some of the things that have been done, but they're highlighting those in mass. So they're highlighting some of the bad things that the U.S. has done, and they're pointing out some of the stuff that, most of us even here will agree that were things that were really shady that even our own government did. You can be proud to be, you can be a proud American, but also not agree with everything that the people above us do. And we all know, and that's why most of us are here, is that there's been some shady stuff. But when their propaganda department highlights that and then even amplifies it, those people they're filled with blood in the eyes, and they're like, let's go. That is why do you think that we're not seeing a lot of the media from that country? I mean, other than, you would think, though, even if we're at a conflict with them, they're saying they're protecting us from their propaganda, but the U.S. is also protecting from India's propaganda about this. In this country, there are certain things that are being filtered out, and yes, you can access because there's not really blocking it on the internet, but you have to go out of your way to find. You have to go to translated sites in India, or you have to go to Brazil, or you have to go to some of these adversaries, and you have to see what they're saying, because honestly, you should be at least seeing some of both sides, because right now, if you're only getting one side during a conflict where both sides are putting out ganda, then you will have no idea where a middle point is or figure out what the truth is. But you don't even need their side to understand. Look at what the world is doing to prepare. It's becoming super clear, and people need to get prep. People need to get yourself set up. And then Russia targets Netherlands North Sea infrastructure, says Dutch intelligence agency. Dex, do you want to go over Vlad targeting the Netherlands?
They're claiming that a Russian ship has been detected at their offshore wind farm, and they're assuming that it is trying to map out its infrastructure, its energy infrastructure, and looking at potential ways to target that. So certainly, things like your infrastructure, whether it be oil rigs or in this case, wind farms, and you've got, adversaries, rolling up their ships, looking around, checking things out, is always, pause for concern. So, we saw the same thing in Hawaii when the intelligence ships were off of our coast there. We were worried about what they may be trying to gather and what type of intelligence they were trying to pull from that. In this case, they're assuming that they're going after their infrastructure, their energy infrastructure. I don't know how much of their energy comes specifically from the wind systems that they have there, but they obviously have quite a bit invested in wind inside in the waters around their country.
You also have Russian ships detected by the possible hard line between Europe and the United States. It's been talked about for years that they have a special sub that can go down and cut the cables that connect Europe to the United States. You have ships off the East Coast. You have ships over by South Africa. You have ships over by Hawaii. And, of course, you have China in the South China Sea doing all of this other stuff. And this is something to pay attention to, absolutely. This is the kind of intelligence they do before some sort of event. Again, most people we're really infighting. Almost the entire community is infighting with each other on what is distraction and what's true. I guess either way, let's be prepared for anything and everything. I guess that's how I see it. Thank you, everybody who's popped in. Thank you over on DLive. Thank you, guys. Yobi, Scooby-Doo, right? Michelle K, Rizar. I don't know if Vicky K made it, but thank you. Sniffles711. Thanks for keeping us current in this crazy world. Vicky K, if you did make the replay, I'm sorry for about the late show tonight. And then thank you, Stephen McMahon, for your support. Appreciate that. Let's see here. If we are not together or here at all tomorrow, I want you to know it's been a pleasure to know all you. Stephen McMahon, well, same goes to you. And then Tracy Evans, thank you for the support and thank you for the super chat. Will there be an escalation early this morning during Vlad's speech, says QWERTY281. Well, I guess what I said earlier is I would not be surprised we wake up one morning and see a whole different kind of scenario on the news, and that everybody's talking about it and every channel's covering it, that kind of event. Which goes back to that previous thing talking about tactical or nukes. If there was a nuke, it would just be like one tactical thing. They would probably say it was hand delivered or it was on a truck or something, because then it wouldn't have a in-kind response of just launching a bunch of stuff. It would be an attack that they prepared and came in with. It's just, that could be a potential, harbor type event. How about the chip plant under construction in Arizona, financed by Taiwan? T. Fisher, they have multiple things here too. We'll see what happens with this, but it looks like they're taking the next step to separate from China. So we don't know what forces are in power, but we do know that there's some very rich people that would prefer to have power over these things and not have Xi in power of them. Without that factory, EMP recovery would be impossible, says Craig Alicious. Yeah, that was an amazing point. Dex, let's see here. Elon Musk says it is inevitable that Mark Zuckerberg would roll out Meta verified after Twitter started making subscribers pay. So, on a lighter note, Elon Musk said it's inevitable Meta would go Twitter's way and charge for verified statuses mere hours after the announcement the new Meta verified subscription service. It said Musk, who started implementing monetization programs at Twitter ever since he took over in October 2022, was responding to a tweet that said Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg copied Twitter by charging for user verification statuses. We actually called this a long time ago too. We said there's people that criticize Elon, but then they do end up copying him. Meta has been going down the tank, especially with Zuckerberg going all in on the virtual reality, which I think sadly he's at the tip of the spear, and it's about to go that way because that's what's going to happen is people are going to be involved in this VR very soon. But they've been losing a lot of money because of it. They've been firing a lot of people. Facebook is done. Folks my age and older are on Facebook, but young folks are done with Facebook. They never even had one. It's kind of like if somebody tells you now, here's my MySpace. What's that? Right? MySpace is dead. Facebook is dead as well, and they knew they were going to, perish at some point. They held on by the fact that they had these groups, these Facebook group meetings, and had all of these hobbies and little things that they could grip onto people and bring people together. But as far as a social networking site, as far as Facebook is goners. I have not had a Facebook for years, but everybody that I know that does still have one. They still like it, but the young generation, try to find anybody under. Is there anybody here that's 18 and has a Facebook that doesn't have a business purpose? Probably not. But again, they're needing to make some more money, so it looks like that's what they are doing. Dex, what do you think about that? They're charging $12 a month to basically have a verified status.
I think they feel like they're worth more than Twitter's $8. But folks, let's get real. What's really happening here is the creation of identity in this social platform. And while it may not be public identity, while it may allow you to be anonymous on the front end where everyone else sees you, on the back end, they'll know exactly who you are. Once you've made a payment, once you've created and established a relationship with them, it's almost as good as giving up your social security number to them. So if you think about what's going on with the social credit systems over in Xi's country, where they absolutely know every single person, they have an ID, they have the equivalent of a social security number, and that is what's tied to their social. Here we're sort of easing our way into it. We've been doing lots of different things that are very much akin to having a social credit system. We've talked about it being slow rolled into us. This is definitely one of those next steps where you convince people to pay, but you're not paying just because you're joining this social credit system. You're paying because you feel like it either A, gives you status, B, proves you're not a robot, C, gives you better features and functionality, whatever it is they want to do, and then you feel good about it. But what you may not be realizing is you are potentially losing that anonymity that you once had on a social platform. Now, I know it's very much harder on Facebook and others to have that anonymity because they go out of their way to try to prove that people are actually real people and they don't want duplicate accounts, and they can freeze your account, ask you to prove your identity, etc. But putting your credit card in and paying for something, that's definitely establishing a relationship with these big tech companies, whether you like them or not, whether you're an Elon fan or not, or whether you're a Zuck fan or not. Once you do that, they know who you are.
That's when I shut mine down. Dex, I think you were with me. Because all it takes is somebody going, that's not this person, which is crazy. Because like if Twitter did that, then there would be no. Twitter doesn't even do that, but Facebook will say we want a front and back copy of your license. Are you kidding me? That was just like I was blown away, and this was a few years ago. Yeah, they want to make sure each person. That this comes into play when you get down the road to what is being talked about with our footprint. When they say footprint, it's literally, I mean, think about that. Even the word footprint. What would a hunter do with that footprint, right? You track an animal by their prints. Oh, there's a track. You're literally tracking the footprint of this individual, where they go. I mean, it's really simple. And then before we move on, if you guys do want to end up getting yourself an affordable and a really, really great bundle of food that can last 25 years, I highly recommend going to marfooglenews.com/prep. This is through My Patriot Supply, which has freeze-dried food that's then packed in Mylar bags, sealed, and ready to add water and to turn back into food for up to 25 years. This is, again, a shelf life of 25 plus years. So in 2052, you could eat this. You can keep this for over 2 decades. You could keep this in your basement or in your truck or somewhere hidden and go and eat it 2 decades later, almost 3 decades. That's what's great about this, because it is not just good for SHTF. It's good for any kind of event. In fact, if you get the 3-month supply, they're going to be sealed in buckets. So even if you got some water damage or something, again, you could pull that out and still eat it. With this, you can also, right now, there is $200 worth of free gear. They actually have all sorts of free stuff that's going to be going with it. So you're going to get a whole cool package of all sorts of survival gear with it. So a $200 package worth of all sorts of really, really cool stuff, including gadgets and all sorts of awesome things. Basically a kind of a to-go bag, right? Or a go kit. A go bag, basically of items of things that come with it. That is with our code, and actually all you have to do is go to the link, marfooglenews.com/prep. And when you do so, you're supporting our independent news at the same time as getting some free stuff with it. So that's marfooglenews.com/prep. Again, that helps support us. You get an awesome, awesome deal, and you get something you can keep and might even save your life at one point. All right, and then it is, compared to competitors, extremely affordable. Some of their competitors are up into the almost $2,000 range, which they're all really great companies that we've checked out. This one is one of the most affordable and bang for your buck, especially right now with all of the free stuff that's coming along with it. All right, and then Dex, let's talk about hidden planet at edge of our solar system, could be 5 times the size of Earth. I think, is this what Mike Around the World was talking about? I almost think this is what they might have been talking about the other day. I never got to watch the rest of that video on Paul Begley's.
This is certainly, this is the same story that a lot of us talk about, and a lot of us speculate. And this is an interesting article from some researchers specifically talking about how there is this ongoing search to find this so-called ninth planet, or as some call it, the 10th planet, with the Roman numeral at the end. But there's a lot of notions in the way the solar system is laid out that they say it can't actually exist. The solar system can't exist without that planet. So that's why they're trying to find it. But the fact is that they claim that it's probably out as far as Neptune, and it's probably dark, and that's why we can't easily see it or find it. It's a fascinating article. I know a lot of people here have studied that topic. It's been a topic for a long time, for as long as I've been around here. We've talked about it, and I just, I think that it's an interesting, more mainstream topic, which is rare to see. Someone at, and I think this one was published actually on Yahoo News, for Yahoo News, not just another syndicated article that they had. But it was quite fascinating to see that topic covered at that level.
And they're saying that there is a lot of evidence of it. One thing that I've used as an example is sort of what is happening right now. I've used the evidence for this is they are looking out with telescopes, supposedly, and seeing that there are stars and things being drawn to some sort of object, but it's like they can't see around to what the object is. They're seeing things from all different angles being pulled into something, like there is an item in the middle with a gravity, a big gravity. This thing's ginormous, according to the people that believe it's there. And they're saying that you can see all of these things getting pulled in, but you can't see the item itself. So maybe some, dark planet, right?
The light being pulled in, not the thing.
No. This is physical
If
items.
if it's the star, if it's in our solar system, the star is the sun. Everything else is outside. So.
Oh, you're right. No.
So it would be the light from stars being bent in.
Yeah, but they also see. They've also seen meteorites and asteroids and things being pulled in. So they see the trajectory change and be pulled into something. So that's why I've used the example of that. Whatever secret things are going on, you can see all of the outlying signs that something is there, like there's a conspiracy of some sort, but you can't see the actual thing. You can see all of the outlying things that are happening around it. During, of course, the last 3 years since 2019, there was a lot of stuff where you could see clearly something was going on, but they just hid it and told you, nope, no, it's not. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know enough about on this subject to. I would think that this would make some of the things make sense if this was true. It would make a lot of things make sense as far as all of these weird events and things that they say go on in space. If it is true what they say is even going on. And then a family's tragedy leads to the U.S. Supreme Court social media showdown. Dex, go ahead.
This is probably the most significant case this year for the social platforms as it relates to the protection. What is it, 230? The 230 protection that the social platforms have. So this, it's a personal case. Like, this family lost a loved one over the algorithm and what the algorithm was doing, but the social networks are protected because of the Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act. It protects them from not having any liability to the content that's produced. Now, the argument being made is that because they're using algorithms to promote the content, that the algorithm is responsible for promoting something. And if it promotes something, in this case, promoting something that was harmful to their family and harmful to, T type activities, stuff like that, whatever. Nonetheless, if they can prove that the algorithm is the reason why, and they can prove in the Supreme Court agrees that Section 230 shouldn't protect a social network, this is going to change how we all interact on social. Because if all of a sudden they lose their protection, this whole idea of, say, even this platform suggesting that you see this video because you liked a different one, or suggesting you watch this video when you get done with another one, that whole notion then puts them liable. If the Supreme Court hears this, makes that network liable, and they can be sued, and then that what would happen is the network would not do it. They would stop. They would probably stop immediately until they come up with a new solution. Now, it's a long shot in some people's mind that this would actually happen, but if it does happen, it's been accepted. It is a case. It's being heard. It's being presented to the Supreme Court. So this is one to watch. Like, this is definitely one to pay attention to, because if it does come out, it will change everything. And it could be as simple as just changing it to say that every time you use the network, you click through and agree that you're not going to hold them liable for their algorithm, so that you're making a personal agreement with them. I mean, who knows what they'll come up with? They'll have to come up with something, because they're not going to all of a sudden open themselves up to multi-million-dollar lawsuits from every single person that has some sort of harm, whether it be anything from defamation, which is very common and easy, to something like harmful acts, or encouraging others to commit harmful acts, and then those harmful acts happening.
Okay,
if
but
any of that, so that's the reason this case is so important.
well, no, and it's even, I mean, think about it. If they're responsible for whatever we say, people like me wouldn't be here. And this is part of, there's a whole other thing going on. Besides this, this is a big thing we told you to watch a month ago or so. We showed you the 4 or 3 Supreme Court cases that you should watch. This was one of them. But this isn't even what I was talking about. There are several people that are in pretty high up positions saying that there's about to be a real push. Another push. I've gone through 8 of them or 9 of them since I started this, to get rid of people like myself. So keep in mind, if they're responsible, they just wouldn't have anybody who even goes close to questioning anything. They would just say, nope, we're a private company, bye, see you later. And because they would be responsible for anything said, anything on comments, whatever else. And the weird thing about this is they're saying that this has something to do with this. So are they saying that they're responsible for her perishing because of this video that was seen on YouTube? Is that what they're saying? How did...
I think in this case, this one's, well, one of them is about Twitter, and the other one I think was about I don't know if it was YouTube or not, but there's two scenarios. One scenario is that the algorithm is promoting it, and the second scenario is their acknowledgement of deleting a T group means they know it's there, and if they know it's there, aren't they responsible for it? So there's a couple different facets to this, but the big one that's really going to shift everything is going to be if this algorithm, they won't lose their protection. Like they are protected if we say something, and they're not held liable for whatever it is we say. But if this is found to that the algorithm should be exempt from Section 230, then they're held liable if the algorithm promotes us with us saying whatever it is we want to say. So that's the big challenge here that we're going to see, and it will change everything. It may actually put an end to the algorithms. I doubt it. I think what it'll do is just create a totally different experience where they're having to establish a very specific user agreements with everybody on how they're using the algorithm, and should they choose to use it, they acknowledge that they're not going to hold them liable.
So on Twitter, I posted a picture. This is the first time I saw it, but apparently other people have seen this too. You know how there's the 5 stars, which, by the way, if you like our channel, just answer those accordingly. If you love us, absolutely love us. But, you'll see the 5 stars underneath, sad face, super happy face. Are you okay with this recommendation? If you say happy face, it knows like, hey, this is a good recommendation for this person. If you say sad face, it won't show you it again, right? But so they put that at the bottom, like, was this video a good recommendation? And of course, they put it every 10 videos or so, or it will just randomly pop up. And what it is it's getting your profile down. They have started doing that on comments. So it will literally, it showed me it and it goes, was this a good comment? And it was underneath the first comment of a top video, a trending video. And I'm like, what? On a comment? And somebody on Twitter responded and they said they're getting your profile down, like what you think of that opinion. They want your opinion on what that person said. They're putting you in a box. So what's funny is a lot of these places, they don't care if you're on this side or that side. They want to know exactly what side you're on so they can point you to more of it. They don't care. That's what's crazy, though. They will let a lot of the stuff on this side and that side go unless it goes against a certain line, and then they're just gone. But, yeah, I thought that was interesting. I've never seen it. Like, was this a 1-star or a 5-star comment? And I'm like, but I think that Foogle family member nailed it, and they said they're getting your profile down to see your opinion on that. But that means they're just reading into everything. It's scary. And people were worried about signing up for our email list. I'm like, you watch us on YouTube. This is the platform that is literally taking down every kind of piece of knowledge and information you have. Anyways, thank you guys. I love you. Dex, thank you so much. Danish Girl, much love to everyone. Help anyone you can in any way you can. I greatly appreciate you, Adam, Dex, Jay, and Mods. Danish Girl, thank you for the massive support tonight. I appreciate you. I hope you join the shoutro. And then Zen1AZ, thank you for the support as well. Love the hearts emoji. Thank you. And then Stephen McMahon, want to repeat, I've never met any of you, but I truly love all of you. If this is it, it's been a pleasure to know you. Well, Stephen McMahon, it's always a pleasure to have you in, and thank you so much for making every show. I really do appreciate it, and I do notice, like it's strange that Vicky K is not here. She always says hi, so I know it's probably too late of a show, but thank you guys. I appreciate you. Tracy Evans, QWERTY, T. Fisher, Craig Alicious, and everyone else that joined in, including, thank you, Miss Daisy, Trinity. Thank you so much. Trinity, Red Pill, Blue Pill, Hi, Kermit the Frog. Make sure to go to marfooglenews.com/friends, and then make sure to join us over on Marfoogle Jams. That channel has the outro and shoutro tonight because we're running low on time. Dex, did we already switch? Or are we already?
We got about a minute.
Okay. So join us over there for the rest of the update on what is on the web only and for the shoutro. Dex, let's go over the web only real quick.
Head over to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, and get the rest of the story. When you scroll down past all the news we've covered, there is a lot going on. The news is stacked today. There's way too much to cover. Updates on some train derailments that happened. Nothing serious on those. Obviously, some commentary from Buttigieg about that. That's in the news. Catalytic converters, they're blaming it on Vlad. If you want to know why the crisis is going up and everybody's getting their catalytic converters taken, you can find that story out. Shipping containers are piling up again. You want to know the story, head on in. There's a lot of updates going on with UKR. They're wanting jets, other things that Zelensky said, what Turkey is saying about the whole F-16 deal as to whether or not they'll get it. That's all there. Tons of updates around that. There's the political spectrum being covered as well. That's there. And then a few updates regarding Elon and Alec Baldwin got some of his charges reduced and a lot more. So all of that's over there. Go to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, scroll down. You'll find that. If you're on YouTube, just open up the show notes link. It's in the description on both YouTube and Rumble.
And a man cured of HIV. My dad would still be here today if they had the tech that they have now. It's crazy. If you were poor back then, you were basically SOL. But if you were Magic Johnson, you were good. Thank you. I love you guys. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. Thank your mods. They have been an amazing group of people down there. Thank you, everybody. Make sure to keep praying for all of our Foogle fan members, but especially for Lisa Hall's daughter. Thank you. Much love. See you mods after, and love you. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It's time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.